Could I call the panels over? Okay, that's always good luck if there's a glass which breaks on the stage. Usually it's a plate, but a glass works too. Web3 panelists, could you please come up? Ashish Singhal, CoinSwitch. Srinivas, Kiran ji, co-founder, Mobile Premier League. Aniket Jindal, Biconomy, co-founder. And the chair, Vas Bhaskar, principal, Elevation Capital. And Elevation Capital, again, has been very, very supportive of Thai India Internet Day and their platinum sponsors. Thank you very much again, Elevation Capital. Just like to briefly introduce the chair. Vas is the principal, and with Elevation Capital, he co-leads the fund's Web3 practice. Web3 is a space of deep interest for Elevation. The fund continues to actively invest in early stage companies building from India for the world, with a deep focus on infrastructure and tooling, and in DeFi and NFT social. Vas has led the fund's investment in companies like Polygon, Brian, Pillow, IndiGG, and Liminal. Over to you, Vas. And once again, requesting you to just bring in questions along the way if you can, because at the end, we run out of time and we seem to see a lot of questions at the end. So challenge is on you to try and get questions in early. Thank you. Over to you.
Awesome. Sounds good. Unfortunately, Sai couldn't be here with us in person. He's joining virtually, so let's give him a minute, and once he's on, I'll kick off.
Okay, do we have Sai connected? Okay, I think we have Sai. Sai, can you hear us?
Sai, you can hear us?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay, super. And okay, you'll have to reduce the feedback a bit. Okay, and you could hear him too, that's fine. Yeah. Great, let's go.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Super excited to be here and anchoring this panel on Web3. Web3 is sort of the next paradigm shift and platform shift that we're seeing happening today, right? And we're quite early in that journey. And in that journey, as we look through it, one thing is very clear to us, that India has a very disproportionate role to play in that journey, right? And when we look at the opportunity today, we look at the talent pool here in India, when we look at how global the technology itself is, and how global the world is today compared to, when some of the last few shifts happened, whether it be the internet, mobile, or any of those other technologies, I think we're very well placed to take a very disproportionate role and be a global leader here. So what I wanted to focus on today's panel was talk a little bit through the opportunity set, talk about the India opportunity, talk about what challenges we face today and how do we really set ourselves up to be the powerhouse that we can be and we should be. Right? And for this, I probably have three panelists, probably the three best ones in India who to talk about this topic. I'll very quickly introduce the three of them and we'll jump right in. So I have with me Ashish, who's the founder and CEO of CoinSwitch. CoinSwitch is a household name in the crypto space and the broader wealth space. The job they've done to bring broader Web3 adoption in India is quite phenomenal. And Ashish himself, I've known him for a while, is very deep in the space, deep in DeFi, deep in some of the other bigger use cases that are coming up. And the work that CoinSwitch is now doing with the Web3 Discovery Fund to really make the contribution to the Indian ecosystem, the broader global ecosystem, is also quite phenomenal. So I will be speaking to Ashish a lot about what he sees as the India opportunity, what he sees about the broader DeFi opportunity in crypto, and very glad to have him here join us. I also have with me Aniket, who's the founder and CEO of Biconomy. Aniket is the OG in the space, building since 2017 or so, and in the space for much longer. Biconomy is probably one of the biggest success stories in infrastructure and tooling built from India for the world. A lot of the larger Web3 apps today run on Biconomy, whether it be Zrun, Decentraland, Curve, Perpetual Protocol, a bunch of them run on Biconomy, and it's been one of the hugest success stories coming out of India. So glad to have Aniket join us.
Thanks for having me.
I also have Sai with me. As I said, unfortunately, he couldn't be here in person. MPL, again, is a name I think almost everybody in this room is familiar with, one of the biggest consumer tech and gaming success stories coming from the country. And also one of the biggest success stories of building a consumer product from India for the world. So again, I do want to speak to Sai a lot about that experience and the consumer tech opportunity in Web3 for India. And MPL is also making a big push into the space, so very curious to hear his thoughts and what excites him today. So welcome, three of you. Maybe we could do a big round of applause, probably the best three web panelists in India we can have. Awesome. I'll kick off right away. I think the big elephant in the room, I mean, it would be amiss for me to not start from there, is a little bit where the macro is today, in the broader space and also in crypto where the markets are today, right? Also, one of the big themes of the Internet Day event is resilience, building in cycles, building through some of these times. And all three of you have seen multiple of these cycles, whether you take crypto-specific cycles or broader Web2 cycles as well. So I wanted to start with a very short question, maybe a 1-2 phrase characterization from each of you on what Web3 means for you, why you're excited to stay in this space, build in this space through some of these cycles, what keeps you going, what keeps you guys building. Maybe Ashish, we can start with you.
Thanks, Vas, for the amazing introduction. And I think for me, Web3 is the new internet in the making. I don't know the early days of internet. I born in '89. So, but what I hear is that the opportunity for India to build the infrastructure, the HTTP, TCP, what was all taken away in a way because we didn't have the right talent, we didn't have the right resources to build the internet. India became the hub for services. Amazing service companies like Wipro, TCL came out of that and dominated the world, right? But this time we are getting the opportunity to build this infrastructure, to build the next layer of the internet itself. We no longer be, reliant on Amazons, Googles of the world. We rather be building those companies in India and dominating the world. So that's what Web3 means to me. A chance for India to dominate internet, build the new internet itself.
Good, go for it. Awesome. Aniket, what does it mean for you?
Yeah, echoing what Ashish said, as a builder, Web3 means for me is like acceptability and ownership. The way we are challenging the traditional ways of doing things is something that gives me kicks every day. It can be simple things like decision making. It can be even broader, like how do you get more community involved. Having ownership and freedom is something that unites everyone in Web3.
Awesome. Sai, you want to add something here?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, thank you so much for accommodating me joining online. My apologies to everyone and also my co-panel members. I think for me, Web3 is essentially the true amalgamation of money with internet and the kind of opportunities it presents to build products, especially in that realm, is just crazy. I mean, especially in gaming, it's just insane. So for me, that's what's exciting about Web3.
Awesome. No, that makes a lot of sense. And at least I'm taking away two things. One is it's a very audacious attempt to rethink what internet and web means. Some of these things which have already been successful at shouldn't exist, right? There shouldn't be code running billions of dollars of swaps and exchanges every day. There shouldn't be digital goods which are scarce. Some of these things which truly Web3 has achieved in a very decentralized fashion is very, very promising already. And we're still quite early in that journey, right? Whether it is how mature the technology is, what adoption is going to happen, what use cases emerge, all of that is a journey ahead. But what's very evident also to what Ashish said is there is a very clear India opportunity to build something from India for the world. I think we have seen a lot of success in enterprise tech, some early success emerging in consumer, and this is really our opportunity to grab. So I do want to maybe start with you, Aniket, and talk a little bit about what is truly the India advantage that you see here. You guys started back in 16, 17 from Chandigarh to now a name which is known literally everywhere in the Web3 world. So would love to hear that journey and what gives you the kicks to say India is the place to build.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, back then when we started, Web3 community was like 20 people or 30 people in a small room. And it was primarily like the trading community. But over the last couple of years, the community in India has, I think, gone like 100x in terms of builders and people wanting to enter the space. I think the key advantage that we get, or anyone can get from India, is the talent available here. I think the core fundamentals of developers in India are very strong. Whether it's Web 2, Web 3, the fundamentals kind of remain same for every project. And another thing is that the talent pool in India, they're like very motivated, like in terms of building towards Web 3, and they give the like 100% in terms of like making India into the Web 3 map. It is like feeling for everyone that India needs to be like one of the biggest moving parts of Web 3, but as we haven't done in the phase 1, like phase 2, like developer phase is trying to make sure that make India to the map of the Web 3. So that is like key advantage of building from India and India.
Awesome. And Ashish, you guys have been at the forefront of promoting a lot of work in the Indian ecosystem, especially a little bit with the Web3 Discovery Fund that you guys launched. Do you want to talk a little bit about the fund? Why are you so excited about the ecosystem here in India? And what is the real opportunity here?
Definitely, right? As an entrepreneur myself, never wanted to be an entrepreneur, wanted to be an engineer, build great products. But part of the entrepreneurship journey is also about raising funds, right? That's not the core of it, but that is equally important. If you don't have the money, you can't build for the future. You will always look for the short-term wins in that case, right? So as an entrepreneur, I found it a bit difficult into, raising funds, learning few of the things which entrepreneurs before me had already learned, right? I had to relearn a lot of these things, fail on my own and figure out, what is the right way to succeed. The idea of the Web3 Discovery Fund is that we as entrepreneurs have already gone through multiple cycles of fundraising, multiple failures of our own as well. Why can't we help the next set of entrepreneurs in Web3 and not let them start from 0? Let them start from 10, right? Help them succeed in this space. We're obviously a for-profit company. We are also, we raise funds to run as well. We obviously don't have enough money to fuel a $100 million or $1 billion round for these companies. And that's where Web3 Discovery Fund comes into picture, where we have partnered with the likes of Elevation Capital, Ribbit Capital, Sequoia, to help us fuel the fire, right? We identify the right talent in the industry with the domain knowledge that we already have, with the failures and successes that we have in the industry, and then present those cases to amazing investors like you and help them raise the round much faster and better, right? So that's the whole idea behind Web3 Fund, that entrepreneurship journey is very lonely, and if we can help in any way, not make them repeat the mistakes that we made and can help them drive to success much faster, is our way of contributing back to the community.
No, that's quite phenomenal. And, at least in our journey also, we've seen how much the community and ecosystem's grown, right? Like 4 or 5 years ago, you would have one of those Web3 meetups or conferences and there'd be a small room of 10, 20 people, to today where we are, and how strongly this community is growing. And also a lot of the recognition this community is getting now from the broader Web3 world to say, this is the space to build, this is the place where there is a strong advantage to build from. Sai, I want to come to you next. I think in the enterprise tech space, in the SaaS space, building B2B software from India, we've had a lot of success coming from the country, right? And B2C is a space where I think we're starting to see some success. I think MPL sort of leading charge there, a few other companies starting to make some success there. How do you think about that opportunity? What do you feel it will take to build the next few big consumer Web3 companies out of India?
I think, firstly, the reason why India hasn't produced, global internet consumer companies yet is because we've never had as large a domestic consumer market. I think that's changed in the last, 4 or 5 years, and I think now you'll see a lot more international companies come out of India. I think, especially when it comes to, say, blockchain and, anything to do with Web3, I think India has got so many developers and it's got such great engineering talent, coupled with the fact that there's so many consumer companies and social gaming and gaming companies in India. I'm talking from a gaming perspective. So I think we're just probably a year or two away from a lot of consumer grade Web3 apps coming out in India for Indian consumers. And I think after that, at the end, after that, once they've seen product market fit in one part of the world, which is India, I think they will slowly but steadily proliferate to other parts. The thing with SaaS is very different. I think SaaS always is, consumer companies always tend to get compared with SaaS. I think SaaS is a very, very different thing. India has a very rich culture of exporting software for the last 20, 30 years. I think it's only in the last 4, 5 years that India has meaningfully started exporting consumer software out. So I think in the next 4 years, with what's happening in the domestic market, coupled with the rich engineering talent we have, you will definitely see a lot more interesting companies come out.
Got it. Sai, and do you want to talk a little bit about the MPL experience in going global? What was that journey like? What are some learnings you would like to leave with builders, building consumer companies from India?
Yeah, I think our learning is that, be prepared to burn your fingers a couple of times, or maybe a hand also. I think you need to be patient. I think for us, it was a lot about just understanding what it takes to kind of like get a product out and running in other geographies. Especially in the US, where we are quite active and we're pushing hard. I think our learning has been that it's a very, very different go-to-market strategy when compared to India. In India, your go-to-market can be, really, really fast. You can move very, very fast. Whereas in the US, the number of consumers that are available might be a lot, but they're also very, very fickle. They're not as, as I'd say, as patient as say our Indian consumers are. So they tend to kind of like, have a very, very low attention span to the product. So your go-to-market has to be very well thought through. You have to be a lot more patient. You can't, scale really, really fast. You have to ensure that you get your core unit economics right much sooner in the US than you do in India. Because very quickly your CACs can shoot through the roof with $100, $200 CACs, unlike in India where the CACs are, $1 or sub-dollar. So I think for us, it's been that. For us, that's been the key learnings. Patience is the most important virtue, especially when we're going outside of India. And patience is all the more important because in India, you tend to know everything. You tend to know the market. You tend to know the limitations. You tend to know what works, what doesn't. Whereas outside India, you have to spend a lot of time first figuring all that stuff out. So I think for anyone who's trying to do anything outside, or should I say launching products outside, I think you have to be patient. You shouldn't be in a hurry to, jump too fast, too quickly.
Got it. So I think some stellar learnings on building. Now maybe good time to segue into thinking about what the opportunities are or what to build, right? Like we've heard some great stories, war stories about what it takes to build from here to the world. It's not easy, but the opportunity is real. But the next big question is what to build. So, and I also love this panel because each of them really brings one big pillar of Web3 here. Ashish speaks deeply about DeFi, the financial services, and that broader opportunity set. Aniket knows infrastructure and tooling really well, and Sai speaks through the social consumer opportunity which exists in Web3. So I'll go through each of them, just hearing their views on what they feel is exciting in each of these spaces. So Ashish, what gets you going about the opportunity on the DeFi side, on broader financial services? And maybe you can intersperse this with what you guys are doing at CoinSwitch on some of these opportunities.
So first of all, Web3 is very new, right? So I feel like we are not just building a company, we are building an industry. And anything that we do today is very new. We are setting the right precedence on what the next set of companies would follow as well, right? So it's very encouraging to see, the entire ecosystem, what we get to innovate. Obviously, there are, bad sides of crypto being unregulated and that we have to handle, but it also gives us an opportunity to define the rules of the game, to define how the next set of companies would grow and build this ecosystem together. Personally, at CoinSwitch, what I'm most excited building is, I want to first tell you a story on, what CoinSwitch stands for. And many of you probably might relate to the story as well, that, we founders don't come from very affluent families, middle class all along. We have struggled in our life to, our parents have struggled in our lives to pay our school fees, our college fees. Because in India, the only way to grow in your life is to work harder, right? You will work 2 hours more every day to get to a point where you are a bit comfortable, right? And Indian middle class doesn't think about growing their money because they don't have the right opportunities to grow their money, right? And when I read the Bitcoin white paper, one thing that clearly opened up is the new financial ecosystem that crypto can provide. But financial system of the past is not bad. And the new financial system and the old financial system needs to come together to provide these opportunities to every single Indian in order to grow their money, right? The tools that HNI has today to be able to go to Goldman Sachs or manage their money to grow that money, that should be available to each one of us, right? And that's what CoinSwitch stands for, making money equal for all. We are soon entering into other asset classes, be it mutual funds, stocks as well, and trying to simplify that to a level where each Indian should be able to participate in growing their money. Earning is not enough. You have to grow your money to lead a successful life. And that's the mission that we stand for, and that's the mission that we are working towards. And obviously, crypto is the early starting point in that journey that would grow to be creating a more financial inclusive product, which would have old finance merging with the new finance, creating a path forward for hundreds of millions of Indians.
Got it. No, I do remember some of those early days when I used to come over to your office, Ashish, and you used to talk about just simplifying things. And what you guys did with that first product, it's quite unimaginable in how much adoption that drove. So congratulations to you guys on doing that. And I have a quick follow-up question. I mean, today there is a lot of chatter about the wallet opportunity being a big one in the broader crypto space, and almost that being the gateway product to drive the next big set of adoption. So what are thoughts there? What are you seeing happen globally? What are things you are excited about?
So let me give the context of it, the question as well, so that the audience understand it better. A lot of crypto today is understood to be a financial product. I will invest, it would grow like a share grows, and the value is accumulated over time, right? But a lot of protocols are not issuing cryptos or tokens for financial benefits. They're releasing those tokens as an economy which is building on that network effect, right? Say we are talking today, our phones are not in use. I can connect that to the Ethereum network and earn Ethereum token. I don't know whether what is the value of the Ethereum token, but through that token, I can now vote on the Ethereum network, right? So building a wallet is very, very important, which can be mass. Doesn't have to worry about seed storage, doesn't have to worry about any complicated scenarios. It works like a Paytm money, and any innovator who want to launch a network, anyone can be part of that network without the financial incentive included in that ecosystem, right? So building that would, in my opinion, would be the next set of growth startups that would come in that space, opening crypto to 1 billion people, not just tens of millions of people that live today.
Well, makes sense. I think it all speaks to your broader vision, and I quite like how all of them come together. Aniket, I want to move to you and hear a little bit about the infra and tooling opportunity. I was in some other panel recently, and there was a question saying, what's the next summer? There was an NFT summer, there was a DeFi summer, and at least all of us converged to say there's an infra and tooling summer coming. That's going to be the next big unlock. So you want to talk through some of that opportunities which you are excited about?
Definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I know there's been a lot of buzz and hype around Web3. You have NFTs, metaverse, DeFi, whatnot. But if I ask anyone here, how many of you guys have actually used a crypto application? I'm sure the answer would be probably none. It's very difficult to use any crypto application right now. So how it all got started, till 2019, it was just a sort of I'll say a paper that was a belief that this thing might work, might not work. There was nothing out there, till 17, 18, 19. Probably there were some coins out in the market traded, but in terms of actual application, there was nothing. 2021, it kind of went to a MVP or soft launch kind of a stage where people figured it out. Okay, this thing actually works. We've been working for the last 10 years to make it happen, and this is the time where we can actually see something happening. But clearly, we have identified that these things are not very scalable. It's not something that everyone can use, and of course, the UX is very complicated. That brings to the next question you asked. Next summer is, how do we make these applications more mainstream? How do we make sure that everyone in this room is able to use a crypto application, and not even call it a Web3 application? We don't call Web2 applications as Web2 applications, right? The stage when we are able to use all these applications, like a normal application is where we'll be achieving mass adoption. And believe me, we're very early, like, in terms of the biggest application right now, it has like even like few million users only, like on a daily basis. When we started at Biconomy, back in 19, there was no NFT, there was no DeFi, there was nothing. There was like some applications trying to get users. And we ourselves started using applications. Honestly, it took me like 4 days to get into an application. Like, okay, if it's taking me 4 days and I consider myself as a bit crypto savvy person, how would anyone be able to use application? Why do we have to go like 20 steps in order to like, create a wallet? Why do we have to like pay for gas? Why do we have to like have XYZ currencies? So from that day, our mission was, like we have to make, blockchain applications more mainstream and make sure that people are able to use applications, without doing like 10 days of crash course, to use an application. It should be as simple as like, using Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, etc. So yeah, I'm like from last three years, we've been working primarily in making sure that, these applications becomes more mainstream and people are able to use application. We're still not there yet, but it's a lot better when it was like back in 19 until where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think we've come a long way. And I think adoption's also come a long way. And I think through some of these bull cycles, you realize what's missing, what's going wrong. And this is the time to really get a lot of that infra, dev tooling, a lot of that in place. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those specific products that you guys have built, which have really made these unlocks? Because that makes it real in terms of what tooling can really do and what's the big delta it creates. And then maybe you intersperse this with little stories of how you guys went global, how you sort of got some of those largest names I spoke about. Those are probably the biggest crypto apps in the world, Web3 apps in the world. Get them to adopt you.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, when we got started, we started talking to, all the applications like Aave, Compound, Curves of the world, and honestly, what they were trying to do was like they were building infra rather than focusing on the product. Like they're like, okay, we want to build this application, but okay, we don't have like a, indexer right now, and we don't have, I'm going a bit technical, but these were all like tech stack that was not available at that time. It's available right now, but all these applications were actually they were trying to make it everything in-house, and we were like, okay, if you're just focusing on infra, like how do you focus on the product side of things? And one of the biggest pain point we identified, after talking to a lot of dApps were like, users are not coming to the application. Like it's taking forever for these applications to, get users. A, like of course the, Web3 learning curve is complicated. B, also, there's like a lot of steps needed, and people actually have to pay in order to use these applications. Now imagine I'll ask you, like if you have to use Spotify or YouTube, and for the first video you watch on YouTube, you have to pay for something. I'm pretty much sure like YouTube wouldn't have like seen like millions of users coming onto the applications. Same with Spotify. But with Web3 applications, to do anything, to use an application, it's a like onboarding step, and you have to pay gas. It's a transaction fee that goes to the network in order to keep the network running. And we chatted with a lot of, like applications and developers. They're like, okay, we want to get rid of this. We want like applications or users to use all these applications without paying for that fees. And this was the first product we created where, we actually got the right PMF, and like hundreds of applications currently using us, and users are able to use the application without even like worrying about having any native token in order to pay for the gas fees. So since then, like the mindset had been more towards, how we can, pinpoint that kind of a user behavior that we want to see in the application, and make sure that we have simple one-click experience, like with Paytm, etc., YouTube, like all the transactions are just one click. But in crypto, it's like, multiple steps needed. So that's something we've been focusing on. Learnings definitely have been like in crypto, things are very time sensitive, like, things you're probably going to be working now might become irrelevant in the next 6 to 8 months as you're kind of competing for a global scale. So you have to be flexible, and you have to be very focused on the product, there's like a lot of deviations while building in Web3, but if you're very focused on the product and, like make sure that you are clearly talking to your customers, I think we're just starting, there's like a lot of things to be done in the next couple of years.
No, that makes sense. And I think with a lot of this adoption now getting easier, I think one of the core promises of Web3 was social and gaming, right? How it would sort of make some paradigm shifts in each of these places. That promise has taken some time, but I think we are here where at least in gaming we have seen very very scale mass adoption happen. Um, in fact, like at Elevation today, almost every new company we see in the gaming space has some form of Web3 elements interspersed in. So we've come a very long way in that opportunity. And Sai, I want to move to you now and hear your thoughts on what you feel is here and now on the opportunities in the gaming and the broader social side of things in Web3.
Right. I think gaming, I mean, for most of the folks who've been with gaming over the last 20 years, or at least have seen the evolution of gaming over the last 20 years, I think would tell you that some elements of Web3 were already in gaming. It's just that people eventually realized that it's called Web3 maybe 4 or 5 years before. But if you know, people here are familiar with this product called Steam. In Steam, the games that were published, people could actually trade the in-game skins long before even you know, NFTs and for that matter blockchain even existed, right? So if I owned a hat in this game called Team Fortress, then either Ashish or Aniket could just buy it off me from the Steam skin store. Now, when they were buying that hat off me on the Steam skin store, they'd probably have to trust the fact that Steam is telling the truth, and Steam is you know, you have to rely on Steam that there are only so many of those hats. The advantage of using the blockchain now is that you don't have to rely on anyone. So if the game developer, in the game, if there are only 100 of these hats, then you can be rest assured that there are only 100 of these hats. That automatically means that the amount of ways you can actually monetize in-game assets changes dramatically, right? Previously, it used to be only one method, which is about developers selling these virtual goods to the customers, and the developers taking 70% of the pie, and say Google taking 30% of the pie, which I think is too much. But now I think in Web3, the fact that, you know, if there is an asset, two people can trade that asset, and, you know, a small take rate goes to the creator and a small take rate goes to the marketplace, just like how it happens on exchanges. I think that creates so much more value, equitable value, in fact, for game developers, for the end customers, and for even content creators, right? That model couldn't exist before. And, you know, that's the model that I'm very excited about. That's the model that I believe will bring in, you know, meaningful economies and meaningful economies of scale into games. And imagine, you know, a game which has 10 million or 20 million daily active users, you know, enabling in-game trade, providing the ability for, you know, gamers to buy and sell in-game virtual goods with each other. I think that'd be crazy. I think overnight you would probably have, you know, adoption meaningfully increased if a world-class game enables that within the game. I think that's pretty much the thing that keeps me most excited about. Sorry, that keeps me most excited about Web3.
No, makes sense. And you know, I think that's definitely something which has existed for a while. The other big promise of blockchain getting into social is where value accrues, value accruing to the more end user, and not one part you did speak about having to trust a central party. But there's also a lot about value accrual both in the social and gaming world which is spoken about. Could you probably speak about what gets you excited there, and what are some early attempts you're excited about?
Right. So I think, I mean, that's a great question, because if you take any game on the Play Store today, right? If you take any game that's in the top 10 on the Play Store today, they usually sell virtual goods. Now, let's assume I'm a game developer and I'm running a game and I have 10 million odd daily active users. I probably am selling infinite copies of a virtual good to the end customer. And by selling that infinite copies of the virtual good, the end customer is buying that virtual good, and the end customer actually has no value. Because once the game is over, or once, you know, the game decides that it's time to shut the game down, the end customer actually doesn't carry any value. But in a world where the game developer is actually, you know, building value for the end customer, then the game developer has to limit the number of goods he or she produces. That automatically adds value. That also means that the amount of revenue that the game developer makes upfront reduces. But if the game is successful, which is something that we are underwriting right from the get-go, then the amount of times that the asset resells, the value gets created both for the game developer as well as for the end gamer. Till now, in the world of gaming, the end gamer actually never got anything out of it. I mean, when I say apart from enjoyment and apart from having fun, the end gamer was the last guy who was holding the bag while everybody else was making money, right? But now I think in these new models, the end gamer, the actual customer, is going to be a stakeholder, and the stakeholder is actually going to the stakeholder is actually going to have value in terms of the assets that they own in the game. That I think could not have been possible if it weren't for the trustlessness layer that blockchains provide. And if you look at any game today, right, almost even the ones which make 200, 300, 400 million dollars, right, the customers actually don't make anything out of it. It's usually the game developer and the intermediary platforms with their toll tax that usually make all the money. And I think that's going to change in the next 5 to 7 years.
Can I add one point? I think Sai mentioned one of the most amazing points regarding Web3, right? I think we are talking Web3. A lot of people may not understand what it is. What simply put, Web 1 was about reading content on the internet. Web 2 was about reading and writing, but you never owned anything. So you never incentivized to produce more, better, and you didn't have the ownership. I think Web 3 simply put is about being part of the ecosystem, where you are earning as well, contributing, and you are the owner of it. So that's where the centralized entities like say Amazon, Google's, and I have no issues with these companies. We rely on these companies as well. But the decision making is central, the profit making is central. What Web3 is trying to do is trying to build companies which are more community and cooperative. So as a user, you're not just a user, but you are part of the ecosystem. You have decision making power, and that decision making power helps you earn and help that network succeed as well. So these are the set of community-based companies which would be, which we believe would be the next future of forming a company on the internet.